Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started here in just a second. We give everybody time to get in from the waiting room. I don't know what it's doing at your house, but right now it is raining at mine. And I was telling Julia a second ago, my biggest fear for this session is that I'm going to lose power. So fingers crossed that that doesn't happen. Hope everybody's having a great rainy Thursday. We're very excited and thankful to have everybody joining us this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. You know, the general housekeeping every day, we talk about the same things. You're going to chat in your questions. If you're on YouTube Live, you can chat in your question as well. If it's after the fact, auxiliary.uga.edu, auxiliary connections tab, and then survey feedback. You can leave your comments anonymously, or you can leave us your name, whichever you prefer. We won't be offended if you don't leave your name. So without further ado, we do have a fun program for you. Hopefully all of our technology cooperates with us this morning. We've got Chef Jorge with us, and he's got some videos that we'll be playing as well. So again, now you see why I'm a little more worried about losing power. Fingers crossed. All right, no further ado, here you go, Jorge.
Good morning, everybody. Well, thank you for joining in. This is my first ever kind of sort of YouTube video, so I'm kind of late to this party. When we were designing the video, Danielle, the marketing team, Sam and I were discussing all the options that we had. And it was kind of what we can do to fill the 1 hour and do something entertaining at the same time that hopefully get to show you guys a couple of things that you'll come at least with a little bit of extra knowledge or some type of knowledge that you didn't have before. Even before, well, let me stop. Big thanks to Sam Peter and Aaron Mosby. Well, the videos you guys are gonna see, they had them for 2 days and they were able to work some magic and make them look at least decent and not a home video. So the first one is pretty much an introduction of what I'm planning to do. This is our daily ritual at home. We get the stuff that we open the refrigerator, we open the pantry, and we look what we have and what we can do today. I have 2 assistants, my wife and my son. So you'll notice some of the styles are a little different in the camera handling. But Catherine, if we can start video 1, please.
All right, give me 1 second.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to interject here a little bit because um, sound looks a little wonky. Sounds a little wonky if you can even hear the sound. So more or less right now, we are going through what we are cooking and showing the different types of vegetables and ingredients and creating a mise en place. Well, some of the mise en place were already created or everything was already measured. Working in the restaurants creates some type of bad habits, and some of them is before you even start doing anything, you get everything that you need, set it up, measure it, and then you can start doing things. I guess it showed that has some hummus, mostly because Catherine talked about hummus. Catherine Ingerson talked about hummus in her presentation. Great presentation. And I wanted to incorporate it into the recipe. So try to get everything ready, put everything where you need. I usually don't have it in such a nice way, but I do break down everything before I even start cooking. It helps me visualize the end product when I don't have a specific recipe, which for this, I don't have a specific recipe. So you see I have the hummus, the sausage, I have a couple other things. I have the couple other things, the vegetables that we're gonna go through in a second. Hopefully, I think it's the buffering in the video that is being kind of wonky, but hopefully the other one, it should already be up to speed. The pasta and everything that we're gonna do. So Catherine, can we pause it for a little bit? Cool. So again, I didn't more or less I didn't pre-measure anything and know how much usually we eat, the three of us. So pasta usually is gonna double your volume because it's dry, hydrated, it's gonna take the water weight on it and boiling on it. So it's gonna double. Vegetables, you're gonna lose a little bit, but for the three of us, without pretty much having any leftover, that's our basic meal. Tamara, at the end, I'm gonna let you guys know what we're making. I'm making a pasta dish with a hummus, breakfast sausage, and vegetable sauce. Again, this is what we have in the refrigerator. I open it and my wife told me, okay, these things we need to use today. And I'm like, okay, so this is what we're gonna use today. And you see how everything it kind of sort of have pre-measure and things like that. Catherine, can we move to the other one and see if the buffering is a little bit better? To the vegetable cut one?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Bell peppers again.
Yeah, sound is a little weird, guys. So I'm probably gonna try to comment in and out of the video and tell you more or less what I'm doing. In this one, I'm gonna prepare to do bell peppers and cut a brunoise out of it. The bell peppers in the dish are gonna be part of the sauce, so a smaller dice work a little better for that.
Jorge, do you want me to turn the volume off of the video and just let it play and let you talk over it?
Yeah, I think that would be the best thing.
All right.
So the biggest thing about cutting vegetables or cutting anything is getting it to a shape that is comfortable for you to handle. Bell peppers don't have that shape. So you get your bell peppers, you wash them, you clean them, and then you get it into a point that, and those are from our little garden. That's why they're like tiny and weird like that. But they're sweet. They're sweet colored peppers. Um, so the best thing is just trimming the tops, cutting it in half, removing the ribs and the seeds of the bell pepper, and now you kind of sort of got a flat surface to cut. So first you do the straight cut is it's an allumette cut, which is French for a kind of matchstick. You want it really thin. It's almost 1/8 of an inch. And after you have done your matchstick cuts, you turn it around, and that's what it's gonna become John Brunoise. On this one, I'm doing it like that because, again, I don't need something big. I need something small. This is part of the sauce of the sofrito, which is a term that we use a lot of Latin America and some of the Latin countries. It's basically a couple of vegetables, almost like a mirepoix, but slowly cooked in olive oil or any other type of oil. You can do some frito. And in the Caribbean, they do sofrito with coconut oil and things like that, or dende oil. So this one, don't handle the knife. Don't handle the knife like that because you can get caught. My wife reminded me of that when I was in the middle of it. So I want to give big shout out for her because she told me get the other stuff to do it, which is almost like a spatula. Now, Brussels sprout, another vegetable that we had there. Again, doesn't have a shape conducive for cutting, and I wanted to do the Brussels sprouts in a chiffonade. You don't see that many recipes, but sauteing Brussels sprouts just for a couple of seconds, it brings a lot of the sweetness out of it. It's not, and it's a completely different texture. I like doing a quick, I'm gonna do a chiffonade, which is a cut that is usually only done for herbs. Really thin. It's something really thin that is used for garnish and things like that on top of the plates. But for this, because it's something really hearty and can take a quick saute, the chiffonade works pretty well. Again, you do the little claw and cut. The thing about this cut is that it's a lot of practice. You need to keep doing your chiffonade, and again, practice and being comfortable with your knife. Let the knife do what it needs to do. The job of the knife is to cut. Your job is to guide the knife doing what it needs to do. Sometimes it's kind of difficult because we tend, or we see a lot of people, probably in the next one I was going to show, chopping and hitting the cutting board. When I started cooking a long time ago, I was yelled at because I was told, you don't do that in this kitchen. Creates noise and a bunch of other stuff. So I was taught the knife when you're cutting never leaves your cutting board. So the knife is slice, cut, this motion. It's never, because that hurts the knife, that actually creates a lot more damage also to your cutting board. And there's a lot more chances of you getting caught. If the knife doesn't leave the board, the tip still, like the tip of the knife, one part of the knife is always on the cutting board when I'm cutting. Except when I'm doing that, that's, sorry, again, bad habit. But the knife should never leave the cutting board. It should always be, oh, this is the point that my wife is telling me, don't do that. Get the your pastry scraper, and that's a good way to really get everything and transfer into your prep bowls or your mise en place. and kind of sort of washing it. Yeah, and all habits die hard. If you guys are wondering, that thing on my apron is called a mola, and it's from Panama. I'm from Panama. I probably said that a couple of times already. Sorry about that. It's a mola. It's from the indigenous people on the Caribbean, on the southern Caribbean tip of the country, the one that borders Colombia. Oh, asparagus, spring asparagus. And yeah, that's my cat. Um, and that's my cat. He doesn't have a filter, and he, thankfully, this time he didn't choose to come in and closer and take a closer look at what I'm doing. But he will do that where my wife is filming. He will do and sit there. His name. So he first we thought Sergeant Peppers, but we thought that wasn't. He was above that rank, so he's Mr. Peppers now, Mr. Captain Peppers. Don't ask me about that. It took some time getting to that name, but yeah, Mr. Captain Peppers. So asparagus. At this point of the year, spring asparagus, those thin kind of pencil type asparagus, they have a quick break in the point of the asparagus that's not tender. You just snap them like that, and that's their natural break. Everything closer to the root side or the end that's closest to the earth, you can wash it and use for soup, creams, even you can blanch a puree and use for a sauce. But I didn't want to use it for a sauce at that point in time. Now I'm doing probably a half an inch cut and explaining how to grab the knife. So index and thumb on the blade, that's the way. Some people, depending on the size of your hand or the size of the handle of your knife, you feel it's comfortable, but that's the most efficient way. And there are different sizes of knives that you can use. So finger and thumb, index and thumb, the other ones wrap around the handle of the knife. It gives you better control. You see a lot of people putting their index finger on top of the blade. That actually doesn't give you that much control on the blade. The best way is grabbing the blade with the two fingers and the rest of the hand wrapping around the handle. Onions. So I've been cooking for 30 years, and peeled onions is something actually new for me. I didn't see those until I started working at UCLA. But I peel a lot of onions and peel a lot of garlic, and a lot of chefs always made me, even before you peel the onion, wash the onion. Why? Wash the onions, peel it with a different knife, and then use your knife for cooking, for cutting the onion. I guess the skin of the onion is in contact with the soil, and if you cut through the skin into the onion, did you guys notice the onion is almost like a sponge? And Chris Edmondson, if she's listening, she can correct me if I'm wrong. It's almost like a sponge, but if you cut the skin through the skin into the onion, you can bring bacteria that is outside into the onion. At least that's my belief, and I'm sticking to it. So I'm peeling the onion with a paring knife. So you're peeling the onion with a paring knife, and then you're gonna use a different knife to actually cut the onion. Well, again, one thing about the onion doesn't have a really conducive shape for cutting it or handling. So after you have peeled the onion, cut it in half, save the other half. Now it's in a way that it's not moving anywhere. Don't do all the hand movement with a knife. Don't ever do it. Need to figure out next time I do a video like that. And again, guys, hand on top of the onion, so again, it helps you move it, but make sure your fingers are a little bit raised. Your first cut is gonna be an horizontal cut. You can do 2 or 3 depending on the size of the dice. Then your cuts are gonna be vertical on the side. And after that, you turn it, and again, let the knife cut the onion. This is the part that we're talking about cooking pasta. There's a lot of people with a lot of different ways or philosophies about cooking pasta. For me, water is it's a critical resource. It's something that we need to save. It's something that we need to use in commiseration. So having 1 gallon of pasta, 1 gallon of water per pound of pasta, I think it's a little bit excessive. It's something that, yes, you're gonna take some of that pasta cooking water for your sauce. And this can be for any type of pasta dish. Doesn't matter what are you cooking, what are you doing, creamy sauce, a butter sauce. That pasta cooking water has enough starch in it that it will help you bind and give some creaminess to it. So you'll see later that I will reserve always some of that pasta, some of the water. Salt in the pasta water. Again, a lot of people with different philosophies. I just put enough so it's able to penetrate into the pasta. You put so much that it's almost like some people say it tastes like seawater. If you're doing what I'm doing, using this pasta water as part of the sauce, that'll be too much salt. That will make your dish salty. You just need enough to cook your pasta, because you're gonna take the pasta to what they call al dente point. It has a little bit of bite. It's not fully cooked, but it's not raw. And why you do that, a lot of people ask why they do that, because you always finish your pasta in the sauce. Pasta gets finished cooking in the sauce. It's not finished cooking in the water that you're using. You do your pasta, strain it, don't choke it with water. We have to do this at the university in dining because of the volume that we go through, and to keep at a safe temperature. In dining, what we do is we choke it with water, with ice water, because not like me, I'm probably cooking 8 ounces of pasta. We probably will go to 100 pounds of pasta that you won't be able to use in the proper period of time to keep it at the right temperature if you don't choke it. Catherine, I think the video is done. Guys, I'm gonna wait for a Q&A at the end, so if we can just roll into the last one, Catherine, that'll be great.
All right. Give me just a second. Oop, hang on. Forgot to share my screen. Try this again. Go.
So again, this is the end. We're putting everything together. We got all mise en place, and now we're cooking the vegetables. And it's gonna explain. Oh, you know what? In there was one of the videos. It's missing, but you're gonna see it here. I had some zucchini in there that you guys didn't see. Well, I cut the zucchini into batones and then that into medium-sized dice. So that's a half an inch. I think I did half an inch dice. So again, zucchini is kind of round, cylindrical shape. Cut it in half. Take that quarter inch piece out of it. Get it flat. cut it into kind of sort of steaks, then into batones, which is the sticks, and then slice against the grain to get your dice. The other thing is, I tried to do a recipe that you only needed 2 pots. Technically, you can do this recipe with 1 pot. Cook your pasta, drain it, keep some of the water, and use your pasta cooking vessel to do all your vegetables. Now, olive oil. I grew up in a household that olive oil pretty much was the oil for everything, except for frying except for some of the stuff that it wasn't really Spanish or Mediterranean, that was Panamanian. We will use corn oil, but we will use olive oil for everything. So my philosophy on this is that even if even if your dish have 20 components, even if you had a gumbo or something like that, everything in that dish, in that recipe, in that plate needs to have its own identity, even though they're gonna come at the end as one single thing. So right now, well, I do this at home. It's a lot faster. When we do things at work, some of the new recipes that we're working out, I have roast the potato, steam the carrot, and then put everything together. So at this point, I'm cooking the zucchini by itself because for what I want the zucchini to do, I want it to get some color. So I need a different type of temperature than, let's say, the sofrito, which is gonna be the mix of the peppers and the garlic. I haven't done anything to the zucchini. It's just the oil and the zucchini in the pan, no salt, no anything. If it is not some type of animal protein, my philosophy again is you season while it's cooking or after it's cooked. Because again, heat helps the pores of everything. Of the little zucchini is just, again, really is almost, it's water. So you get the whatever sugars are caramelizing out of it, and then you can season. If you start adding salt before it, what salt does is draws the water out and draws the water out of the surface of the cut zucchini and prevents the proper caramelization. Zucchini is a fruit, so it has, besides water, has enough sugar that will caramelize. That's probably what I'm saying right there. And again, it's cooking at home. Should be fun. I don't touch it. I really just let it be there for a little bit. That's me trying to indicate the whole motion. I just keep sauteing and moving it around until, for that type of cut, until you get the color on each side, just let it be. Just let it be, moving around a little bit, just let it be, let it cook itself. Going back to how I build things, zucchini is gonna be one of the main components of the pasta dish. So that's why I'm treating it like so. The thing about cooking vegetables in some type of food items is that they may not have a lot of flavor, but if you treat them as a main item, if you treat it as something that the little flavor that they have, you develop with just a couple of basic techniques, that's all you need. That you're gonna get that great zucchini kind of squash, sweet flavor. Yeah, now we're seasoning the zucchini because at this point, I feel that it's already warm enough that it's gonna take the salt in a little better. Instead of drawing the moisture out of the zucchini, it's just gonna absorb it because the outside of this little zucchini dice are caramelized. It's hot. Some are not completely caramelized. It's gonna be able to take the salt. Salt and pepper. We again, I'm cooking at home for 3 people. We're not cooking for 5,000 or 10,000. I always try to season as I go, and I crack fresh salt and fresh pepper into whatever I'm doing. Again, I understand we don't do that at work because time. This thing took me because of the whole filming it. It took me probably 45 minutes total to get everything taken care of, which doing it at work is not really feasible because every minute is really important. What am I doing there? Let me see. I think those are the onions. Oh, no. Those are the chiffonade of Brussels sprouts. High heat, quick stir, salt, pepper, probably not even a minute or two in the pan. You get some, again, cruciferous. It will have some sugar, and what you want to develop is just the sugar of the Brussels sprouts and a quick cook, because you also want the texture of it. And because we did a chiffonade of Brussels sprouts, it won't take any time at all. Oh, you see, that's when we switch. That's when I switch assistants for the camera. There were some. So yeah. What am I saying there? Okay, I don't remember. So everything that gets developed different, everything gets developed at a different stage. I'm using the same pan. Again, most cooking that I do here at home, I only use either one pan or 2 pans. And that's it. That's the only thing I need to wash. That's the only thing I need to worry about. Tasting the pasta. This is the part that I kind of start explaining what you need to do with the pasta, what you need to do. I'm gonna get a little bit of the pasta water. So water is one of those natural resources. Again, water is my philosophy. It's a natural resource that we need to be really worried about. And I use everything that I can. So just enough water to cover the pasta. Make sure that you need to make sure you stir it so you can get the water through the whole pasta. Always save some of that water for your sauce. Doesn't matter, you're doing just for your kids, if you're doing spaghetti with butter, add a little bit of the pasta, cooking water to it. It'll make it look creamier than just plain spaghetti, just butter in the pan with the spaghetti. No. Put your pasta cooking water, a little bit of butter, let it swirl around until it's almost a sauce. Add your pasta. Oh man, it's simple, but that you just made a classical dish. You just made a classical emulsion. Now, what I'm doing there, let's see. Okay, so right now we are rendering the fat on the breakfast sausage. So this is not a main item. This is just a flavoring for it. We have, I think we made biscuits with sausage in the morning. And we had a little bit left over of the breakfast sausage. And instead of not enough for a whole meal, so it's a flavoring, something that you have left over. If you have one slice of bacon, which maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you have one slice of bacon or a couple of slices of ham, chop it in. It doesn't need to be the main part of your meal, but they do bring a lot of flavor. Even that sausage, if it wasn't for, if you were making a pasta sauce, you were making a pasta, render it out and use it for beans. We use, what we use? We pretty much reuse anything here. Like we will get, my wife likes a lot, we cook we smoke pig feet, and that we will use for whatever we don't. Sorry.
So he'll be right back.
Okay, sorry about that. My dog decided that she needed to have a discussion with somebody outside. And okay, there she, Debbie, if you are there listening, she sometimes get kind of rowdy. So now we're adding the asparagus. Finished rendering the fat on the sausage, save the sausage, a little bit more oil. Again, I'm a chef, I'm not a nutritionist, so I like the oil. You don't need that much oil, but for me, it's kind of sort of, I like the flavor of olive oil. And some of the things like asparagus, if you start a little bit low and just keep adding oil, they're gonna absorb a little bit of that olive oil while they're rendering. Most vegetables will do, most things will do. There's a rate of absorption on oil when you're cooking. And you do want a little bit of that, at least making this recipe. So again, I pretty much cook all the vegetables separate because I like to each vegetable have a different flavor profile. It's like if you cook it different, you cook it to the right point. You cook it to the right point to develop the flavor of that vegetable per se. So now the pan was too hot. Need to cool it down because I'm gonna start the onions and the sofrito, which is the mixture of the base of the sauce. So I start, I guess at this point, garlic. I'm pretty sure it's garlic. So the thing about garlic, and you see a lot of chefs do this, you want garlic to get to a point that's caramelized almost. Oh, no, sorry, those are onions. Those are onions, my bad. Same thing with onions. Depending on what you're doing, you want onions to the point that they're caramel, not just translucent, caramelized. Onions and garlic have a lot of sugar, and you want them to develop those things you want them to give that flavor away. So now you get the bell peppers, and I'm pretty sure that no, not yet. So you get the bell peppers. Again, a lot of sugar in it because bell peppers are a fruit. Those type of peppers are a fruit. They're a fruit, so they have a lot of sugar in them. That's when, for this base and those type of vegetables, I don't want high heat. I want low heat, just enough that they start breaking down, the water in them start evaporating, and the surface sugars start coming out and getting a different color. Again, it's my philosophy. I don't think if I were doing this without taping it, it will take me everything more than 45, half an hour. That's usually what it takes me to cook a meal here at home. If I'm not doing some type of meat cooking or something like that. When I'm doing something like that, it's probably half an hour. That's where the whole part of mise en place, having everything ready just to put in the pan, comes really handy. Even if I needed to do the mise en place the day ahead, I will measure everything and put it in the refrigerator, like we do a dining. Dining is so efficient because we are working 2 days ahead. Technically, let's say what we are preparing on Monday, preparing, not cooking, is what is gonna be cooked on Tuesday or Wednesday. We put everything on a card. We label that card for, let's say, poppy seed chicken. Everything is one card in different shelves in the card. That when you need it, you just pull the card out. You work with what you have, and everything is maintained the right temperature and the right amount of time. So again, added the garlic at this point because the onions and bell peppers are at that point that they're starting to get brown. The thing about garlic, same thing about onions. You want it to get to that point that is release and caramelize all of the sugars that they have. Not burn, just caramelize. Almost if you're, caramel color. You're gonna start feeling that, you're gonna start sensing the smell, you're gonna start seeing it, and it's gonna leave some of the sugar in the pan, and you're gonna start hearing it. The way it cooks is different when it has a lot of water in it. My kid is in his meeting, but and guys, I'm gonna try to do all the Q&A at the end. Hopefully, we can get to all the questions, and Catherine can probably keep me on track. Hopefully, she always does. So this is bringing together. This is the sofrito. The sofrito is the base. We're bringing everything together. Now those flavors have developed kind of separate. The sauce, everything is coming together. So where we are now. Okay. Now, you guys also have noticed I don't use Teflon. I try to use the stainless steels at home. Doesn't have any weird reactions to flavor of acidic foods. You don't get any of the Teflon kind of sort of chipping into your food. That's almond flour. Ooh, I forgot to say that. There's also almond flour in this dish. I was told I needed to use almond flour. So that was a last minute addition. You guys didn't see that, but we were going to the pantry. My wife told me, oh, we got this almond flour open. I'm like, okay, we'll use it. The only thing about almond flour is that hydrates and brings some consistency. Putting all the vegetables together, now the dish is almost coming to the part that everything that we did separate, it's gonna merge together and create one single kind of source of flavor. Again, philosophy of cooking, philosophy of taste. Every single thing that you do need to have 5 components: sweet, salty, acid, sweet, salty, acid, bitter, and umami. And some people will say that spicy will be one order, but if you have all those components in the right order, doesn't matter how much you eat or what you eat, every single bite is kind of sort of different. Not different, but new. You don't get tired and you enjoy and you feel satiated. That's my philosophy. I believe that, for example, I hate things that are just sweet. I don't like sweets at all, but the sweets that I like will have all those components. Like, we'll have a little bit of sweet, a little bit of saltiness, a little bit of acidity. It will have something. When I was a pastry chef, my desserts will have a little component of everything. Even chocolate will have something sweet, something salty, something acid. At this point, I added the hummus to it. Make sure that I'm mixing it correctly, and then adding the water from cooking the pasta. And you just created a dish with a sauce. Just right amount of sauce. Sorry. just the right amount of sauce for the type of pasta. I chose this pasta because it's not a really saucy dish. It's just enough to coat the ridges of the pasta. And the vegetables were cut, just the small vegetables from the sauce and the sofrito, the chiffonade from the Brussels sprouts, kind of get tangled into the pasta. So again, you always adjust, always have more than enough water, and keep adjusting your sauce as you're mixing it. You see how the sauce, I don't believe for a pasta dish to have pasta and a pool of sauce. That was never, I don't like that. I personally don't like that. I know there are some people that enjoy that type of pasta. I don't enjoy it per se. I like just enough sauce that is coating at the pasta. Going back to the pasta, and the whole thing of finishing with in the sauce, adding a little bit of water, the pasta finished cooking in there. So it's gonna absorb some of the flavors that you got there. That's why you cook it al dente. It's not any arbitrary definition that somebody in Italy decided to come up with some couple hundred years ago. No, pasta get cooked al dente because technically it's finished cooking, it gets finished in the sauce. It will take a little bit of the flavor of the sauce. Most pastas is just flour and water and a little bit of oil and salt. That's all it is. So you make it, you dry it, and then you go again to the whole work of doing that to rehydrate it in the sauce so it picks up a little bit of sauce and a little bit of that flavor. Yeah, at this point, I'm pretty much done. Always taste your food. Always taste your food. I always have a bunch of, spoons around me so when I'm tasting. One bad thing about me being the person that cooks at home, my wife and my kid has adapted to my salt level. So they used to eat really low salt when I wasn't cooking as much. But when I'm cooking, my salt level is a little high. I don't really put salt in the table. I tend to season to the point that I taste it. Okay, this is where I need to be. It doesn't need anything else. It is like, for example, this pasta, I put it to the point, oh, we're still gonna put Parmesan cheese on it. So this is the level of salt, and adding the Parmesan cheese to it, it's gonna take it to this. Boom, that's where I need to be. And that's the thing. I didn't know exactly how much water I was gonna need. I just needed enough to create a sauce to coat to coat the pasta, to make sure that everything, that all the ridges get covered. I think we're done, Catherine.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm hungry. I'm ready to eat. You're lucky that we're in a lockdown situation, or I'd be texting you saying, okay, I'm gonna be there in like 15 minutes. Just for quality control purposes, of course,
Oh,
got
the trick of video. I did this last week.
That's just cold.
Yeah,
What kind of hummus was that you were using?
You can use any type of hummus. That specific one is the plain roasted garlic from Trader Joe's.
Okay.
But any type of hummus, I would recommend plain because it gives you a good canvas to add other flavors.
Okay. I'm looking. Is it necessary to cook all of the vegetables separate, or is that a preference, or is that a chef secret kind of thing?
I wouldn't say a secret. It's a preference because I believe that you give every ingredient in the dish its own due. Like the zucchini deserves to be taken care of this way. The onions need to be taken care of this way. I believe that if you do that, you bring out the most amount of flavor out of each item. If you put everything together, yes, you're gonna create something, but zucchini doesn't cook at the same speed as the onions. This doesn't cook at the same speed. It doesn't develop the sugar at this speed or this amount of heat. So that is my preference, is my philosophy, that everything gets cooked separate and then you put together.
Okay. What's your favorite? What's your go-to pasta? You said you had wheat pasta there. Is that your norm, or do you switch it up?
Switch it up is depending on what you're in the mood for. For this dish, that work. Let's say if we do use a pasta with meatballs, we'll use the spaghetti. So it depends on the pasta. Somebody was telling, I was looking at a documentary about pastas, and I think there are, and somebody will correct me, but I think he says 700 different type of pasta registered in Italy, types of shapes of pasta. So there are pasta for any, and the thing of the shapes is that each shape is for a specific purpose. Spaghetti is kind of sort of a carrier, things like that. This type of pasta, the one with ridges, is to pick up the sauce when the sauce is not too saucy. So all depends.
Did not know that the shapes had something to do with what you were eating them with. That's it's just blowing my mind this morning. All right, where do you do most of your grocery shopping? What's your local haunt for shops?
It's not a specific Kroger, Publix, Trader Joe's. We like Trader Joe's. It's not because of anything. It's just because we are used to it. When we were living in California, there was a Trader Joe a block away from our house, and we'll walk to it. That's why we like it. But you go depending on what you need. I don't have a specific store that we go to.
Can you repeat what you said about the onions? Not sure, Tamala, what the context of that was, like which part about the onions. Was it the cooking it by itself, or the maybe it was the cutting them? You said about cut. I know I caught that earlier, and I never thought about cutting through the onion would introduce bacteria and junk into them. I had not thought about that, using separate knives and whatnot. And we'll come back to knives. We got a question about knives too, but go with the onions first, and then we'll come back to knives.
So again, when I first started cooking, I worked for a lot of different chefs, and one of the big common denominators, and this was 30 some years ago, you didn't get peeled onions, you got whole onions with the skin on. And the common denominator, most of the chefs told me, always wash your onions, use a different knife to peel it. And then some of them couldn't really understand or tell me why. And so I had to look for, well, the biggest reason that I have found out is, and I think Chris Emerson chimed away, is that part of the onion is in contact of the that part of the onion is in contact of the soil. And
yeah, Chris just chimed in and said it's more important when the onions will be served raw.
Okay. Well, sorry, my phone is running out of battery, like I told you, Catherine. Oh.
Warned us that was going to happen. At least he's still right side up and not sideways.
So yeah, but I do that. Doesn't matter if I'm cooking it or if it is raw onion. I always do that just because of that habit that I was taught. It's pretty much safety, food safety.
It's a good habit. So about the knives, you were talking about sharpening or having a sharp knife or way you were cutting would dull the knife. What's the best way to sharpen knives at home if you don't have a quote knife sharpener?
Again, it depends what you feel comfortable with. I have a whetstone. I have a whetstone in here. This is what I finished my schooling at. I went to a culinary school and I work in restaurants. So I'm comfortable doing that. Some people may not feel that comfortable doing that. There are some good knife sharpening service, or you can even look into learn how to sharpen your knife. My preference is using whetstone. I have two different types of knife. I have a Japanese style knife with a thinner blade that I use for vegetables. Like the one I was using there is a Santoku style knife. That one, pretty much after I'm finished done, I give it a couple of passes in my whetstone, and then I hone it on the steel and save it for the next time. Wrap it and save it for next time. The German style knife that I have, they have a different type of steel and they're heavier and thicker blade. I usually only sharpen those depending how often that I use them. Once a week, maybe once every other week. But again, for me, it's a whetstone and learning how to use it.
Okay. So you were talking about your stainless steel cookware, which is interesting. I'll have to take that under advisement because I was looking at some of the Teflon coated the other day and I was just thinking, as often as I burn things, not that I burn things often, but when I do burn things, it surely does make cleanup a lot easier, but I'll be keeping that in my mind now as far as chipping. But what about copper cookware? What do you think about copper cookware?
No, so it's not the actual copper cookware. It's copper is on the outside and it has to be lined with something else. It had to be lined either with aluminum or stainless steel. The copper on the outside surface is because copper is a good it's good conducting heat and transferring to the next metal that is but oh, they look nice, they look beautiful, but you need to keep it. One of my jobs, one of my first jobs was polishing all the copper saute pans for the restaurant, and that I had to go one specific day that I wasn't cooking in the line and just polish everything. That's the only bad thing about copper. You need to keep it nice and clean, because if you start letting it build up on the outside, it doesn't transfer heat as proper. So the whole thing about polishing and cleaning copper pans, the outside of it, is because it helps proper heat transfer, and they look nice.
So that's probably a little bit of traumatization from having to polish all those copper pans is why you really, subconsciously don't like the copper.
It's not that I don't like it. I don't have any pans really showing off. Like, why will I? And I found out, and I prefer stainless steel or cast iron to actual copper line pans.
Okay.
It takes a little bit longer to reach the heat that you want, but they hold heat almost as good as copper.
Okay. Well, we're about 30 seconds away from being done, so we'll just wrap up and say thank you, Jorge, for the cooking tips and for inviting us into your home to watch you cook. We'll ignore your bad habits with knife skills, but we will try out all of those techniques. One of my kids in my video was paused, and one of mine walked by and goes, "What are you watching?" They thought I was getting ready for cooking something tonight. They will be sadly disappointed. But Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Thank you, Chef. Our compliments.
Thank you, guys. Again, thank you, Aaron and Sam. You guys made this possible. I'm gonna blame it all on Catherine's computer because of the sound buffering.
That's fine. I can take it.
But thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, guys.